year you had a very small amount, whether it was 18 or something. Why is there such a huge discrepancy between you and Cider Mill? Cider Mill's got 65,000.
Does that include your projected staff developer? So I don't have a staff developer coming that carries that kind of a price tag. I would guess that's the big difference.
I mean, not that I want to up the budget, but it seems that, you know, if one school is spending $40,000, $45,000 more, I just wanted to figure out.
We also, for elementary, every teacher goes to every training. When you start getting up to secondary, it's kind of a little more focused. Yeah, we have to be careful not to overwhelm our teachers because they're getting training in everything. So you just multiply that, and I can imagine it's that many more.
Right,
I don't
because
know.
everybody specializes. So so Kate Roberts was in today doing some training with our.
There's only a certain.
Right. There are only 9 teachers who teach reading,
Right.
you know, at a grade level.
40
I shouldn't
plus.
call it reading, because there are a million people who teach reading, right? Let's pick something else. There are only 9 teachers who teach world language, for example. So it's a smaller pool of people that need to access the training, but I really think the big ticket item is the staff developer.
Okay, Debbie. Oh, okay. Well, I'm glad we raised the question about future projections. I think now's a good time to start talking and planning and seeing it coming down the road and toying with different models and looking what other middle schools are doing. And, you know, so it's a legitimate question that we don't have to address right this year. But since it's coming, it's great that it's out and we're talking about it. I've asked the other 2 schools, you know, are you satisfied with the class size averages that are projected? Are they in line with what you
Yes.
want?
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
great. And math has always been a focus, and you said you're doing a lot of intellectual sort of lifting and you know, keeping the good things rolling, et cetera. So my questions around math may or may not have a budget implication, but one is if you start to try to increase instructional time with math, and that's an if, are you, and at what pace are you looking to increase instructional time, and would that have any kind of a budgetary impact?
Sure.
Or do you know enough yet to even talk about that?
So I think that, I don't know if you want to start handling that.
Yeah, the answer is maybe.
Okay.
So, because these are the big middle school structures. So not only teaming, but scheduling as well. And so just preliminarily, that we just purchased a subscription to Michael Reddick's work. I don't know if you've ever worked with him when you're in Ridgefield. He's a scheduling guru and has produced hundreds and hundreds of different model schedules for every iteration of school on the planet. So our first level of work is just analysis. What do we have? What do we need? What lines up? And where are the opportunities? So that's work that will kick off later this winter with this select number of staff as we get into that exploration. But I think you've heard very clearly from Trudy and the math committee that it's a priority. The question is, as you've already also know, in a fixed day, what's going to give? And it's going to be that choice making that's going to be probably most heart-rending for some.
Okay, but you don't anticipate increasing instructional time for 1920?
There are no plans at this moment to increase instructional time. Correct.
For math, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So, like the AIM program was a way to increase instructional time for the kids that we knew were most in need, right? And I think that we have some other innovative thoughts that we're entertaining, and it's a question of what's going to make sense if we're looking at some structural change, what's going to make sense. When classes move around in a team structure, they're all same length, and so when you get into how do you give one core area more instructional time than the others, first of all, the time has to come from somewhere, right? And that every minute is precious, so you're taking it away from another program, but the other is just how that works and from a logistical scheduling point of view. And it's a wide open question. There are ways that you can change that do have FTE implications, and there are ways to change that don't. But everything's so interconnected that you have to really step back and look at the whole model. And so I'm not recommending any change at this time, but I think that we're gonna have to be nimble when it comes to operationalizing whatever plan we land on.
Okay. And there's a lot of talk about, looking at the 6th grade math program and revising that. Are all your needs for training and materials and all of that, you're satisfied with that amount to support it?
Yes, the 6th grade, the change in the 6th grade course sequence has 6th grade math teachers teaching 6th grade math. And so certainly they'll refine their work and they will focus a lot on making sure that they can meet a broader range of needs in a single class. But their command of that content knowledge is something that is already being refined through the work they're doing with their standards work and the assessment work. So,
And the summer work will come out of my budget.
Oh, that's right, the summer
Yeah.
curriculum work, okay, all right.
And the number of math classes and the number of math teachers doesn't change. It's just a question of what the section's going to be designated as.
Right, I realized the FTE wasn't necessarily gonna
Yeah.
change, but just the amount of support in terms of materials or
Yeah.
training or summer work, so.
I think if they're given the opportunity to make that change, they're going to be poised to be very successful with it.
Good. Okay, I look forward to that. And just, I've heard about this Middlebrook drain. Can you just describe it?
So a couple of times a year, this year it happened on an open house night, we have to have the fire department come and pump out our courtyard that's between the library learning commons and the cafeteria. I jokingly refer to it as Lake Middlebrook. And when we have heavy rains, there are several pieces of roof that all drain down into the same courtyard area, and there is a drain there. My understanding, which is probably flawed, is that the line that something has cracked inside the line and it no longer actually drains nearly as much of a capacity as it should. And so we have there's like literally a spot that when that thing is covered with water, that's when we have to pump it out. So
Okay.
it's a problem.
Again, was exploring, whether, the drain needs to be repaired, true to the story, but he was working with our roofing company or somebody to see if we could divert some of those roof drains someplace else so they didn't get the
Yes.
the water into the courtyard in the first place.
Okay.
And I
And
don't
brought
know
to
if he
Trout
was in there.
Unlimited's awareness as well. I think
Yes.
that part of the problem is that because it's
Well, it flows into the river.
a entirely enclosed courtyard, where the problem is under a
Yeah.
piece of the building, right? So
Yeah.
it's essentially under the art wing. It's like a
Uh-oh.
broken, it's probably not a pipe, whatever it is, the line, the sewage line, whatever.
Okay. I just think because it is a $100,000 expense, that the more we can explain it to the public,
Yes.
the better, that's all.
Yes. We
So that we
Takes
just,
right
we
up
just
to
have,
you.
we just have
pump
some
it out
understanding,
because
yeah.
otherwise it will go into the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not
Worse.
questioning that you need
Yeah.
it, but I'm just questioning that, we make sure the public
Yes.
understands.
Yeah, it takes
why
I
it's
gotcha.
there.
pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it
I'll just
flooded.
talk to Middlebrook parents or
Yeah.
Yeah,
open
I have
house.
Chris and
Yeah.
Jose scheduled to be here on February 7th. So
Okay.
we'll be able to
Yeah.
look at the operating capital as well as the bonding capital proposal, so you can get a better flavor, so we can,
Yeah.
we'll get you more detail about that specific concern in advance, but you'll get a sense of the work that they've been doing and trying to surface these concerns and then plan to address them over time.
And we're not anticipating that if we dig all that up and find like, oh my gosh, look what it's done to the foundation.
No,
We're not
no,
worried we're not worried about that, are we?
I'm not worried, but I don't know enough to be worried
Okay.
yet. Whenever you dig anything, it's worrisome,
Right.
or at a school,
That's true.
we'll leave it at that.
We have to celebrate. We have a functioning greenhouse. We have a
Yes.
functioning elevator. I have great faith that we could have a functioning drain too. It would be really good.
I think that's
It's the
great.
little things in there.
Yeah. And then to reiterate what Glenn has said about all the schools, I think it's been a very clean budget, easy to understand, no big dramatic issues. So anyway, thanks for your hard work. And we're just trying to make sure that your needs in terms of class sizes and materials and all the basics have been met.
Yes. And the questions with math, I have to say, we're a little bit like the ducks, right? We look a little calm on the surface, but underneath we're with you. We're on it.
Have you been getting any feedback since Trudy presented the plan to us at the Board of Ed?
I have not.
Not from teachers or
I have not.
parents?
I know my
Division?
teachers, the fifth grade
The
teachers
fifth grade teachers are asking?
very excited about it.
Excited,
But
okay.
later this week, we have the parents coming in to see this for the
And so
first
then you're
time.
presenting it to them. Okay,
I
that's
think
gonna be
that
my
the
next
Middlebrook
question.
teachers, again, because they're only, how do you want to say that, maybe 9, maybe 12 in the department, they're very well aware. They've been kept very much abreast of the work, very invested in the work.
Philosophically, the teachers are all on board. They're very
Yeah.
excited about this.
Will you have Middlebrook teachers at your presentation?
You have
Um,
Middlebrook administrators at your.
yeah, I know we invited these guys down just to come so they can come listen to it. But
And we'll do.
Trudy is Trudy is going around to
Trudy's-
all of the different schools to make sure it's a consistent message. We just happen to have a math workshop for the parents planned, so we're taking this as an opportunity,
Perfect.
just because the information's starting to get out there and it will have an impact on our fifth grade,
Yeah,
so.
perfect.
And when we do math-themed coffees and things like that for the rest of this year, we'll invite the fifth grade parents as well.
Nice, good. You guys have it,
Cherry on top.
really?
Excellent.
All right. Time's, look at that,
Okay.
10 minutes.
Good job, Laura. And Chuck.
All right.
All right.
Sitting there
Jen,
looking
tell
so
me
hard.
what's an LLC?
Library Learning Commons.
Did you ever?
No, I don't, no, I don't.
No.
Yes, and
We
now
had
we have a new
intern.
math interventionist, which is why the number changed.
Okay. And 2110, pupils personnel. And this is probably the same, goes back to staffing again, is that it doesn't show, decrease of 110 students, but personnel remains the same. But that's probably the same question, same answer we had about the teachers, so. Okay, so 22.
So pupil personnel, those staffing needs are set based on the actual population of students. So it's, the projection will, what actually
to
happens
shift.
will depend on what
Yeah.
the programs are coming up to us from Cider Mill.
Right.
Yeah.
And 2210, instructional program improvement, travel expenses.
We
Like-
increased significantly.
Yeah.
Yes, because we were significantly under in terms of our travel needs this year.
Okay.
So we've been transferring money. We've had some really nice opportunities for,
Other web training or something for example.
well, training, yes, but also training where there isn't actually a cost to go to the training, but we do have to send people, and so the travel is
Like mileage and stuff.
yes. It's like the ruler teams on
Right.
several places.
And last, 2200, no, 2220, just the fluctuation in membership dues.
175, 250, good question.
Yeah, and to 800 this year, and then out years it goes up over 1,000.
So I would have to ask, I would have to go back to my notes from Fran. Part of what
Okay.
happened with the LLC is that we doubled the
Additional-
staffing there. So 2 memberships instead of 1.
Okay.
And then with the expansion of what is happening in the LLC, in terms of the digital citizenship course being added, I don't know if that is also tied in. I'd have to look into the details.
That could just be estimating how much the LA is gonna charge.
Yeah. Easy, see, I told you there were easy
Yeah.
questions.
Glenn?
Couple of things. Do the students take home their Chromebooks?
Yes.
They do.
We have a handful that don't, but it is the norm to take home the Chromebook.
They do. Okay, I was just curious about that.
Parents can opt out.
Okay. The very first item that, and I don't know, it always has bothered me that you mentioned here on your student achievements is that Middlebrook School is a national blue ribbon school. How often are the blue ribbon recognitions done? Okay? Once you are recognized, does that mean you always and forever are?
Yes. So I did some inquiring my first year because the designation does have a specific window of time that,
Okay.
and we inquired as to whether we would resubmit. And the feedback that we got was essentially that they they don't encourage people to resubmit for the designation, and that yes, you remain the designation. There's the window in which you were designated, but so yes, that you're a blue ribbon school, once a blue ribbon school, always a blue ribbon school.
Okay. It's always about, it has a year on the sign, on the banner,
Oh, it does.
outside the school, yeah.
Yeah.
The year that it was-
And a year that it was
The year was
recognized.
done, right.
And I keep saying, all right, well, what have you done for me lately?
Right, right. No, agreed.
You know, so once we are recognized, we are always, no matter, that doesn't sound right.
Like a tattoo.
Huh? So it's, yeah, obviously.
One that you regret
Yeah,
sometimes.
Okay, I was curious about it, because it was the very first item as you mentioned in student
I asked
achievement.
that too, and it's because that with the window closing, I didn't know if we were meant to take down something like that, and
Okay.
so.
Okay.
It
Okay.
makes you wonder if we should have a new banner without a date on it.
Yeah, and just say a National Blue Ribbon School,
Yeah, so we
period.
missed
I think you're given
Without
that
the-
banner.
Huh? Without the
Aren't you
date.
given that banner?
First year
Oh,
that
you're
we were
giving it, you
here.
don't.
Oh, I'm sure you're
Right.
giving it, yeah.
Well, what was the date on it?
I don't know, it's a few, number of years
It was
ago.
2011
It was
because
2011?
we, I remember the ceremony, we were candidates for the Board of Ed.
Oh.
Whatever it is, it's just, okay, all right. Anyway, we're.
But that is my understanding.
The trash hauling is going up dramatically.
Yeah.
And it's going up for each of the schools,
Yeah.
is up
Yeah.
significantly. Is that, the town does, do we contract that out?
So that's just
And it's something that we should be
quite an odyssey.
being
Recycling.
So
competitive,
Chris
competitive
Burney
bidding?
is managing that.
Yeah.
Yes, and so he's, what he learned was there were, I don't know, 2 handfuls of separate contracts with the same carting company across town. So he's been working through getting us on
Yeah.
a single price. But what's being hauled has changed, and the cost of what's being hauled is also, I think, more expensive. So we are recycling much, much more, and we're composting much, much more. And so
Yeah.
the cost of collecting the compost, I think, is.
So that's what's driving.
Yeah.
You know?
So we're doing good
You do
deeds and
dance,
paying
you
for
don't,
it.
right?
Yeah,
Okay.
this is money well spent. I mean, our
That's-
amount of actual waste has gone
Well,
down
yeah.
pretty substantially.
Has gone down, that's what I think.
Right, and then
It's
I think
costing
the
more.
other, we used to send our, not Wilton, I think we in general used to
Yeah.
send all of our recyclables to China, and
Yeah, well, that's.
at the
Well,
present
I
moment,
know- I know
it's
that's
no longer.
When is the town, when we're gonna
Yeah.
do a contract, right?
Right.
Yeah, they're
so-
trying to work into one right
Mhm.
now.
Yeah,
As I think
but-
the example he gave was Stanford. He said they used to get a revenue of $90,000 to $100,000 a year for their trash hauling.
Yeah.
It went up 600,000.
Yeah.
The
Stanford
cost,
gets a
to the
huge debt.
cost to them,
Yeah.
with the whole change of the whole
With the
China and
recycling,
everything
yeah.
and the
And
rules
how
with
clean their
recycling.
recycling
Yeah.
has to be.
So
Yeah,
when
how
we-
clean, that's basically.
When we
it.
get to
Demolition.
renegotiate, we're excited about that, because
Yeah.
the frequency of when they pick up trash and when they pick up recycle is something that you have to
Yeah,
negotiate.
it's out of sync
Yes.
with what
Yes.
our needs are, and that's
Yeah.
been another.
Well, that's out
And
of,
then-
Chris is handling, that's out of our.
Yes, yes, it's on
Okay.
both sides of town,
Alright.
having
And
the
then
same
the
issues.
compost is a
What,
separate
the
thing.
repair, I know we met with Jose, he's scheduling repairs, but Middlebrook now has a big number in there for.
Yeah, it's actually, I mean, there's some
118,000,
repairs.
yeah.
Yeah, and that's, I think, largely due to a drain
Drain.
at, in one of the courtyards that needs to be dug up and replaced.
Okay, so that's what this number represents then?
A good chunk of it.
Good job, okay, all right, good. Now, next thing,
Lake Middlebrook.
in your co-curricular extended day program, I seem to be hitting this in each of
You
the
like that
schools.
theme.
Pardon?
You
Yeah.
like that theme today.
Well,
Me too.
yeah, but it bothers me because if I look at this, I look at the, number one, this school does have an offset for income that the other two schools don't have.
Right.
The price is different. I mean, it's only $25 a head,
Yeah,
right? It's
$20 a head at a school, price is the same.
And so.
But somehow we book an income line here on this school.
What
where we
page
did
are you
not.
on?
Right, well, we projected an $8,000
$14.50.
offset at Cider Mill.
Where?
It's on the,
It's not on the page.
It's the number for you.
$95.
No, 1450, go to 1450.
What page is
Right,
that?
page
Well,
95.
Page 95, no, page 95 for Middlebrook.
Yes.
What side of Mill's page?
Go back.
Yeah, I'm sorry, South Mill does have participation.
Yeah, 8,000.
Okay,
Mill and
I'm sorry.
Bristol is the only
Page
place
eight.
that doesn't because we
It's-
historically didn't collect fees there.
Okay, okay. But what I look at, we're projecting $5,000
Right.
at $25 a head.
50.
Huh?
It's $50 an hour.
Is 50 at Middlebrook? Which makes it even worse then,
Yeah.
because that's only means 100 students.
I would have to look.
No, if it's $50 a head at Middlebrook, that means there are only 100 students paid. For 26, for how many clubs do we have there? We have 20 clubs? We only have 100 students paying their science.
It might just be the structure, if it's a one-time pay.
Right.
I mean, we can do the analysis and look.
But if a one-time pay,
Yeah.
$5,000,
Mhm.
that means you got 100 students
Right.
spread across 20 clubs.
And it's
Out of
down
900
this year.
students in the school.
Yeah, but maybe it's 100 kids.
No?
Are we hitting the 8,000 this year, the projected, that was
I'd have to
budgeted?
look and see what our actual.
So it shows that there's a decrease in participation.
Well,
for
it said-
sure.
this is telling me the Middlebrook, we only have 100 students participating, it's a $50
That's what
fee.
we're projecting,
Yeah.
yeah.
But look,
Come
but look
back
at the
to this.
actuals for 16,
Yeah.
17, and 17, 18.
pretty
They're
low.
35,
Pretty low.
less
Yeah.
than 3,500.
I-
Those are
yeah.
actuals.
Yeah, I know, yeah. At $50 a head, so we only have,
So it would be a culture change to start actually policing, did every child pay the participation fee? And if we think it's a culture change, we can.
well, it's not, no. Why should some kids pay and other kids get a free ride? That's not right. It's not, nothing,
Right.
we're doing what we should be doing.
I do think I do think that there are a lot of kids who are in multiple clubs.
You only pay a one-time fee.
Yes.
That I understand. So if 100 kids are paying a one-time fee, then they get the opportunity to spread across several
As many
clubs.
clubs as they want.
If you're only having $5,000 projected income, that only means 100 kids are paying the $50 fee.
We'll have Marianne go in and do the analysis.
Okay,
We'll
we
go
gotta
back.
look at this, guys.
Sure.
Okay.
So I'll just throw it out there, the high school uses Power School, like each club has a Google Classroom, and that's where you get your bill when you're, at some point.
Okay,
Everyone.
and that's the only, other than that, listen, all three of your budgets,
They're not?
all three of the, the two elementary and middle school are on the number. I mean, you really are. I think you guys have done yeoman's work in keeping things in line, keeping things, I mean, changes are minuscule, percentage increases are minuscule, and you're to be congratulated. I think you really got the message, and I know it's hard work to do what you did, but if you look at these budgets, they're solid. There's nothing outrageous here at all. When we get into its nits and gnats here and there.
Yep.
I mean, come on.
Yep.
They're good.
Yep.
I know.
They really are.
We could get rid of participation.
But there's some areas I think we need to look at to better understand. And this
Sure.
whole participation club thing, for everybody.
Well, the high school jumps
activities.
around, just their actuals jump around. It's
Well, I know
very
from-
hard to
well,
predict.
Yeah, but I know from the high
But
school
that's the
for
high
a
school.
fact,
We'll
we are
get that
not
tomorrow.
doing as good a job as we should be doing about collecting those fees.
Agreed.
Because I had two parents come to
Yep.
me and say, I volunteered to pay my fee because nobody came and everybody asked me for it.
And I held
Because-
off paying until I was asked. I mean, I
Okay.
knew they existed, but
Right. We'll
I
have
was
a
like
new
testing the
opportunity
system.
Yeah.
with
You have to
a
ask me
change
for it.
in activities
Well,
coordinator.
yeah, it's just, it's out there, it's something we need to look at and try and get a better handle on, okay? But well done, you both of you. And Kathy also, even though she's not here, I think you guys really have, you heard the message, delivered.
Right, no, no,
Do you
yeah,
have questions?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Deb,
Yeah.
I did have just one, and the training for your teachers, you allocated $20,000. And I remember last
And really what, we're giving ourselves some time to really work and build common understandings about what's our foundation of understanding about, not just, the book title says assessment, and it does start with assessment first, but really the idea that if we have, it will lead us to greater philosophical alignment in terms of understanding what the core content of each course is, making sure there's alignment in terms of what the exit skills are for students, what the critical standards are that need to be addressed in that, and we look at, we'd like to refine our vertical articulation so that we're reducing unnecessary duplication in our, between the grades 5 through 9 course content. And so really it's a heavy lifting year on the intellectual side for teachers, but it would not be reflected in the budget. I tried to shelter 2 years for that study. And we have big dreams that come out of that in terms of, we really want to take a look at not just assessment, but also feedback to students, how we're inviting students into the assessment process, helping kids with goal setting, and being able to have feedback that is personalized and actionable for students to take a look at it and know what they need to work on next as learners. And then also down the road, in that sequence, we'll be looking at how we communicate student learning, both to students and to parents, to make sure that there's consistency in how we're using things like grades and comments. So I could not be more proud and delighted with the work that the teachers are doing. I wouldn't say any of us feel like it's fun, but it is. It has been really very worthwhile use of their time. We slowed down for quite a while to do a deep dive into each department's standards to make sure that teachers who are teaching the same material are interpreting and applying the standards in a consistent way, and then looking at that within the department. How does that standard, how does that learning level up over the years that kids are at Middlebrook, and also looking at 5th and 9th to make sure that we are getting kids ready for success in the long trajectory. So all of that said, it's a lot of work, and it's good work, but it's not particularly something that's going to have a budget stamp on it at this point. So when you look at my budget, primarily what you'll see is we're rolling forward all of the good work that we're already doing, maintaining all of our programming. We did go through with a really fine-tooth comb on things like supplies to come in as lean as possible. I'm hoping that we didn't come in too lean, right? We make so I think that that's our big story right now. And so my budget largely is just being, we have a couple of sort of items that we need to look at for specific programs, things like rescue bags, replacement mats for things like Project Adventure. We are taking care of some sort of lingering needs in terms of school instrument replacement for music that has been we've been kicking that can down the curb for too long. Yes, and we have the same addition with math textbooks, because we have I think we're going to year 6 after a 5-year subscription. So there's some very small items that are plus or minus, but generally we're not doing anything significantly different going forward. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have.
Before I lose this has nothing to do with Lauren, but just something you said when we were talking, and Glenn asking for an explanation about the Teachers College, and can we have a workshop actually about things like Ross Green? Because people are talking about Ross Green, I have no idea what that means. Sure. But a few years ago we had one about all the technology, which I thought was really helpful. Do you remember that when we were first on the board? So we could have one almost just about professional development or programs, like what the Teachers College and the Ross Green.
Sure.
Does that make sense,
Yeah,
Kevin?
we're spending a lot of money.
Yeah.
There's significant costs to us, and thank you.
Because then we can build up on and do assessments and
Those are fun
mastery.
things to explain because they're
Yeah.
inspiring.
We'll come to that one.
empowering,
Good. Okay,
and
good.
the teachers are really jazzed, and
Okay.
those are delightful presentations
Yeah.
to give because
Yes.
they're all good news.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we'll go back and focus on the budget. Should we go the same order? Debbie? Or should we go Gretchen first?
wanna go first,
Gretchen.
No, I don't like going first.
Okay, Lori.
I'll go first. So in general ed, 1100, right away I noticed that, the line item for the teachers doesn't show up there because it's broken down by subject matter, and that's okay, I figured that out. It didn't take me too long. I know. But here's one concern though that I did notice, is that in 18-19 we're at 1,009 students, give or take. And by 21-22 we're at 899 projected. Yet nowhere in the outer years in the projection, it doesn't make any adjustments in FTEs.
Not yet, because that's work that remains to be
Okay.
done. And that's something we have, we were just talking about this a week ago. So we'll be working with the team there to put together some scenarios.
The calculation for the projected, do you put that together, or is that just like an Excel calculation that just estimates?
That's our enrollment projection.
Yeah, I mean, this
No,
is a
but I mean-
homegrown spreadsheet that we've developed locally,
Yeah.
over years because
Based on the
boards
contracts
have
and how
wanted
it goes.
information.
Okay.
But the projections, the enrollment projections come directly from the NESDEC sheets.
But the enrollment projections, but the dollar projections that are,
Right, so many of them, we would increase at a percentage if we think that there's a logical percentage to do that at. We certainly can go in and manually change them. I think that when, having worked at the elementary level, when you have to go down a teacher or up a teacher, like one going from 13 sections to 12 sections isn't a structural difference. I do think that when you're talking about a significant population shift
Yes.
at a team to middle school, you want to have a really philosophical approach. And so at this point, this is budgeted as if there would be no structural change. And
Yeah, and I would say that's not because we're not assuming we're not going to change structures, but it's work to be done. And to Lauren's point, we've had conversations around teaming for a couple of years. What constitutes a team? We're unique in that today World Language sits on a team that's different from most other middle schools in our region. So I think working with the staff, we're going to present the enrollment reality and then talk about what are the possibilities here. But it's got to begin with the conversation point of what's best for kids at a middle school level.
we're very committed to teaming. Anytime people
Appropriately so,
mention
absolutely.
teaming, I want to be able to, yes, that's something that we know is really good for kids. And we just, so since there isn't a set decision about what structure would potentially change, I'm not projecting that change.
And that won't be done, that work won't be done by the time we go to the town vote and all that stuff. So it's
No,
not
we're
going to show
we're
in our
gonna begin the
budget.
conversation this year, but if people have questions, I think it's fair to say just exactly what you heard.
Yep.
This is very much on the radar, and we're, over the next 6 or 8 years, potentially coming down almost a third in that school.
Right,
So, those are
obviously there'll be changes.
dramatic implications. Sure.
So to our buddies on the Board of Finance,
Mhm.
it's being worked on, right? It's
Poor
being worked on.
Johnson.
Yeah, okay.
And when you see the significant shifts, like, there are some bumps in there
Yeah,
too.
that's
So
right.
we
Of
just
course.
we have to think about what makes best sense for instruction.
Program 11-12, art. There's some spikes and lows in the area of newspapers and periodicals. And there's an X-Acto paper cutters purchase for the coming year, but then it's projected for the following years as well. So will that be like a purchase each year, or is that considering different equipment?
So some of those things, because we have 3 studios, we do sometimes buy
Okay.
over a period of years.
Okay.
And so I don't know if it's the X-Acto paper cutter that is gonna happen that way, but certainly some of our bigger purchases, we age them in that way.
Okay, good, good, good. Let's see. 11:30, what do I have, 11:30? Probably similar questions there, because that was my, 11:30 equipment, new and replacement, it's microscopes and all that stuff, so same answer, I would presume?
There's a certain number of them that get refurbished or replaced each year. It tends to be cyclical as opposed to sets.
Okay. 11:50, 64, what is that? Textbooks, again, it goes from low to high, and then it stays high going forward in social studies. Is that?
The social studies, we're talking about textbooks?
Yep. Textbooks,
Would have
workbooks?
to be tied into the tech book. So I would guess that has to do with the subscription cycle.
Okay.
I'd have to pull out my paper.
But it's obviously different, like we're using different ones this year than we did the previous 2 years, I guess, because there was the big jump from last
Yeah.
year to this
We
year,
didn't
and
use
then
the
that
tech book.
continues.
The tech book, don't remember.
The tech book.
It's a digital textbook.
Okay.
So the tech book was newly introduced last year.
Last year it was.
Yes, so
That
that's,
looks like
so
it's
you're talking
pretty
about
steady.
the previous year, yes.
Yeah, whereas we
So
didn't
we
have
went
that.
from
Yeah.
out-of-date paper copies,
And
yes.
so now it includes the
The
subscription.
tech book, yes.
Perfect.
Mhm.
Let's see, 12/28, 11/20, oh, the STEM coach salary was a little confusing to me. From this year to next year, it drops
Different person.
17,000, but then it jumps back up to 100, over 100 for the out years.
Well,
Different person.
Different people,
Yep.
okay. Let's see, total 9. Personnel changes, I guess, there too,
We switched who was in the role.
in
Math
academic
interventionist?
Yeah,
Mhm,
okay.
Yep, we moved somebody who had been the math interventionist into being, well, this happened in a
Yes.
circle, right? We had, the first math coach moved to being the AIM teacher. The math interventionist became the math coach.
Substitute expenses, or the, under 1,100. So you've got certified for sick leave, and I'm assuming that's just if teachers call in
Yes.
sick. But the certified training, is that just train the substitutes, or is that to fill in when the teachers are
When the
being
teachers go to training. So it would be the
Okay.
same thing, this year, the way Kathy actually described when the TC coach comes in, that's the way we've been using Jen Saravallo, where we set up a daily schedule and we cycle teachers in and out for about an hour and 45 minutes. We probably use a very similar schedule. And so we would need that many subs to kind of get teachers through.
Okay.
We do it over 2 days, so.
Okay. And then the, other than SNL and PED, there's $70,000, so I was just curious as to exactly what that is.
Yes,
If it's-
so that is, now at this point, I could pretty confidently say that it will be for Teachers College. Obviously, we're trying to do vertical alignment and
Oh,
things
so
like
there's
that.
2 lines, one for the Teachers College and one for the training? There's a $6,000 and a $70,000, so I thought the $6,000 was covering the training.
Gretchen, what page are you on?
I'm on page 45, or 40.
45.
Yeah, 45. I just pulled it from the first page, basically.
So I would probably have to go back and look underneath each
Okay.
category to see where it's coming, but I know that my big ticket items are for Teachers College. I have a lot for the LLC to keep them up and trained. I was able to take out the bill prevel because we're doing a lot of that internally, so that's not.
But
in
the
there.
LLC then falls under substitutes? That you don't have-
Depends on, so none of it falls under substitutes, like I'd have to pay for the professional learning, but then you also have to pay for the sub, so it's gonna, one event could fall underneath multiple lines.
Oh, okay.
Do you know what I'm saying? Because you
Yeah.
have to pay for the subs and you're paying for whatever they're attending, whatever training they're attending, or whoever's coming in to work with your teachers or what have you. So
Okay.
you're gonna see the same event showing up in multiple budget lines.
Okay.
Some of that substitute is for PPTs too.
Oh, yes, and that's where it's gonna be
Yeah.
broke in my,
And
when you look
I
at the
guess
more.
it was easier for me to pull it from the general.
Because you could see.
Because it's bigger
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
But it sort of explains it more, and that was sort of one of my
Yeah.
overall, not necessarily specific to you, but
Yeah.
just in general.
Yeah, Tuesdays
like-
and Thursdays, I think all of us, or 2 days a week, we all have a substitute that comes in to help us cover PPTs when we try to do the
So the
breakthrough
teachers,
coaching.
when the teachers go to a PPT, they're actually missing classroom teaching time as opposed to,
Yeah,
All the staff there are typically
Yeah.
missing
Yes. Yeah.
instructional time, whether it's
Yeah.
special education services, speech, OT, PT.
yeah.
They're all being taken from kids.
Which is
for
why
that.
we've
Bless
been working really hard trying to
Reduce the
shorten.
number, reduce the length,
Yep,
reduce the staff.
yep.
Is there any data on how many teachers, how much time?
We used to have that, yeah, I think that.
It's hard to average that out,
Okay.
because I don't think the average, I think you lose the story in the averages. So a student with very complex needs might have a team of 10 or 12 staff, and a student with milder needs might have a short skeleton crew of 3 or 4.
And meet less
And
frequently.
need, meet much less frequently, meet for shorter periods of time. So you lose the story in the averages, but I think we can take a look at a way to articulate
Yeah,
the
not,
cost of the processes around special education at 504 when you
yeah,
pull people
well,
from.
more about just the aggregate or the total amount of time without attaching it to a student, just attach it to the teachers, how much teacher time is represented by pullouts for PPTs.
Right now, we don't take, we count the number of PPTs, we don't take data on the length of PPTs. We could probably start taking data on the length of PPTs. Because the length of it tells you the story. If you have an hour-long PPT with 10 staff, it's one thing. If you have a 3-hour PPT with 10 staff, it's another.
We could
So,
just
we'd have to
over a
look.
couple of weeks.
Yeah.
and-
I just
and
have to
then-
think about how best to give you the most accurate data so that it tells the right picture, tells the right story.
Yeah, I just think it's an area we should look at, instructional time, PPTs.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I mean, Sharon's been working with us,
We've been doing this for years.
Yeah.
to really work on agendas and processes to like tighten up the time for a PPT to whenever we can, not have everybody sitting around the table and stuff like
And
that.
parents have
so-
been very supportive of us having people
It's still-
report and then be
Yeah.
excused from the meeting.
To go
So we
see their
try a
kids.
lot of strategies to minimize the loss of instruction
It's a
and
lot.
service time.
Okay.
But the process does take
Yeah.
teachers away from kids. It does. But I think parents and teams are working collaboratively to try to minimize that to the extent possible. And the parents have been very helpful and supportive in that.
Yeah.
It's still a challenge though,
Yeah.
Is that a challenge at Meadowbrook as well, Lauren?
everywhere. it's a
Covering
challenge.
PPTs? I mean, do you hire substitutes to cover?
oh, yeah.
And it's not just the classroom teacher who's.
So-
Yeah, no,
Specialists.
I don't mean to derail this, and maybe we should talk about it tomorrow, but if you're hiring the substitutes to cover a PPT, shouldn't that fall under special education as opposed to under your own budgets? It's, I mean.
Because they're all our kids, so I don't know, I never really thought about that.
mixes the side and off.
It's like what we
Yeah.
need to function.
Okay.
I don't know.
I would agree. I would actually take all of Andrea's budget.
Yeah,
put it in the
I
budget.
always find it weird
Okay.
that there's these separate budgets because it's like there are kids, so it's like, you know.
Yeah.
Strictly, it's what we need to do to keep the rest of the children covered while that person goes to the PPT.
Yeah.
And so it's less about the fact that we need that sub to service that child and more about the fact that it's actually the
Child's
rest
getting
of the
serviced
children that we're.
elsewhere.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Correct.
At the middle and high school, it's so schedule dependent. The teacher that is selected to go to the PPT is typically based on the schedule, who's available, who's in a free period. So there's so many factors that people try to.
We try to manage it so that it's not the same subject area, the same time of day, the same, so it's a lot of,
Juggling.
yes, the team leaders have a lot of say in how we manage it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to derail the whole conversation.
No.
She texts me, I see you, I'm like, where are you? She goes, I'm in the library.
She won't come this time.
Tell her to come in.
I
Yeah.
know. I keep waiting for the day Mason shows up.
She's gonna ask you for lunch money.
I know. Anything else? Good.
Debbie, go ahead, do you
No, I'm fine.
follow up or new
no.
ones? or-
Good.
Just the other questions, like,
Sure.
are you happy with the class sizes that result,
Yeah.
in terms of you're staying where you should be?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. That fourth grade going into fifth grade is still going to be large. It's it's a cohort that we keep watching. I think I want to say we were up to 9, and there was a couple new additions, just like Kathy had said, and more than half of them are fourth grade. So I was like, no more fourth grade. As Debbie says, there's a new student enrolling. I'm like, please tell me they're not in fourth. But right now, we're good.
The class sizes look good?
Yep.
Okay.
I think that I will tell you, I was able to breathe last year when we managed what we did with that extra section, and I would pray that you guys do the same thing, because 2 years ago that was really a tough position to be in for that third grade class we had to add. So just knowing that there was a possibility it was going to happen and that we had a plan was very comforting. So hopefully we'll do the same thing.
Well, I just think as a board, we should just be sensitive if enrollment dramatically
Yeah.
changes and gets into class sizes that are
And even
not what
listening
we
to
need
Kathy,
we
if
want
she-
them to be, that
Yeah.
we're sensitive to that. and we
She's
can
got to be on the
respond.
line too, because if she went down 2 sections when she went for 45 students and she's only gone up 1, she's got to be real close to needing to go up 2.
It's the distribution across the 3 grades, though. I mean, the
Yeah.
class sizes, I look at them every day. And
Yeah.
we're, Miller Driscoll, we're projecting 22s, maybe a 23
Okay.
in second grade. So
Yeah.
I think
We're
it's
okay.
hard to
It's hard
say
to,
it that
yeah, because you don't
way.
know
We're certainly
where they
better than
are.
California with 45 in a class.
I know.
Do
Yeah.
we don't budget a contingency
No.
teacher, we
And
wait
we're
until
not
the
based
need
on
is
the
there?
projections.
Okay,
We're-
because we're comfortable now.
Last year was,
First, second, third
was a
grades
true
only went to school for
outlier.
5
Yeah.
Okay.
hours.
Yeah.
All right, I just want us to be sensitive and responsive if we have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, and
If
I
it
think
breaks class
as we
size
did, we
tradition.
would,
Yes.
right?
Okay.
And so in that sense, it's better if it's all fourth graders, because if you get enough to add another.
Yeah. If it's gonna happen, yes, consolidate.
Would you come in in groups of 22 at the
Yeah.
same grade level?
That's
Right.
Yes, with like needs, please.
Yeah. Would that be nice, right?
In space,
That'd be boring. That'd
And
be
your siblings are all
boring.
3 years younger than you are, yeah.
That'd be boring. All right.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
And just
Good
keep up the
budget.
good, I mean, it's so great to hear you talking and knowing what's going on, so I don't know.
It's a good place to be.
That's good.
You obviously haven't paid our heating bills, I guess.
No, it's just so cold.
It's a wait.
Those windows.
Shit.
Yeah, right, but
Yes.
Oh,
For tomorrow, just, you might want to start on this side, because those windows, it's radiant cold right on.
I think Kevin
Tomorrow's gonna be
arranged-
windows.
Tomorrow's
We're
better
just
than
trying to be
Things are already
efficient
up.
here.
It's gonna be warmer tomorrow. so
Be warmer
that's
It'll be
right.
warm. Tomorrow I'll be complaining when it's hot
48
in here.
tomorrow, twice as hot as today.
Never happened.
We're gonna meet in the courtyard tomorrow.
Never happened.
In the rain. Okay, Lauren Phelps.
So Millbrook, I think that my report's very similar to Jen's in the sense that there's really big work going on at Millbrook. Most of it is not something that will be directly reflected in budget line. Just to give you a little snapshot of sort of the big news at Middlebrook this year, like my colleague said, we are working at the staff level with Ruler. We also are working with a Ross Green core team as a sort of a big, I think a big step forward for us that we're going to be able to get a lot of value out of. We are continuing our coaching, which is our most valuable PD plan. I think the coaching has really sort of taken on to a new level this year. It's lovely to see. Our staff work is very much centered around a particular book study we're doing. We're doing a book study about classroom assessment for student learning.
Say that the work that we've been doing, and that this name won't be new, with Jen Saravallo.
Yeah, but
Has-
I just, yes, okay, but as a board,
Very
we need to
similar.
As a
understand
board, we should
exactly
have a presentation. as to
what's going on here and why this is happening. Because
Yeah.
we haven't been,
All right, so we'll have to put something together.
okay.
And just to assure you, though, it's a
Yeah.
lot of the same work we've been doing with Jen, and just transitioning over to a different.
Well, it's taking teachers out of the classroom to go to Columbia and all this sort of stuff, and we, as a board, we haven't
We're doing it the
been.
right way now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but
if
it'd
you
be
would
good to
put
know.
something,
Yeah.
I would appreciate very much
Got
understanding
it.
why we're doing
Yeah.
this and what we're hoping to achieve from it. Okay. Now, 3 questions.
Sure.
I get the half science now. I'm still fuzzy.
I know. I know. It's hard because Kevin also reduced his
Himself.
Right.
himself.
So what do you,
So it's 2
now,
people, each has one.
Yes,
so you have a half science teacher.
correct.
It's just, are you happy with that? Is that enough? Is it,
Yeah.
I mean, what is,
And I'm with Kathy, where I feel like it's definitely been helpful to have the science person there on site, helping with the NGSS kind of
doesn't-
implementation.
yeah,
But
but is it
General ed
adequate?
teacher
Huh?
teaches science
Pardon?
too. The general ed, their
Yeah.
classroom teacher.
They
Well,
coach,
I
yeah.
understand that, but to
If
have-
you were to say to me in the future going forward, if we were, that would definitely be something that we've had the conversation around.
I think we need to go back and look at that again for both those schools. You know, I know the classroom teachers teach science, but the emphasis, and now with the change in standards and the refocusing and everything, I raised this as a question. Are we
There's
doing-
also something too, and I think this is why we kind of stayed the course, at least for this year, is that if we had, right now, as we're making the shift to this new way of teaching science, if we had coaches and the teachers were only kind of observing, there wouldn't be a lot of ownership in the shift in practice,
Yeah.
right?
No, I understand that, but
Yeah.
I'm.
Come back to
concerned.
us in a year, we might have a different.
Well, I was
Okay.
gonna say that if we've just shifted to 60 minutes of math, we
Yeah.
have to, we can't just be doing math and science, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, if
Yeah.
we do it
Yep,
it sounds like you guys have been very careful and thoughtful,
Trying to-
methodical,
Yeah.
and spacing it out.
It's hard for elementary teachers because,
I would only add to that we have one math coach. I really view this math teacher, a math science coach. This science teacher, in my mind, is a science coach.
Mhm.
So to a certain extent, that's freeing up time for the math science coach to devote more to
that's
math.
definitely the way we've
So
been
in my
organizing
mind, we
it.
really have 1.5 math science
Yeah.
coaches in each of the elementary.
That's a good way of looking at it.
Now,
'Cause
do we have a
really
new
function
math
like that.
interventionist?
Say that again?
A new math interventionist, is that person new?
No.
Because there's a
No.
big salary increase,
Yeah.
and I don't understand what that is, if
Yeah.
it's the same person.
Same person.
And it's
That's
only
a
one
big-
person.
I don't, you know, she did finish a degree, and so maybe it's just
Maybe
catching
name
up.
movement.
That was 1209.
Well, yeah, 1209.
It's a
14% increase there,
increase,
in
yeah.
dollars there.
I mean, I do,
When people move
I do
through
know
the
that she-
steps,
Okay,
you
just
can see
as a question, if you could get.
can't remember when I signed off on that piece of paper, but I
And
do know
then,
recently.
what is the increase, the co-curricular activities? What are you, why did it increase there?
Those are the clubs as well, and that Kathy was talking about. So
Yeah.
anything co-curricular is the increase in clubs.
Okay.
So we added, for example, the purposeful play, we added
Okay.
the
Gardening.
gardening, the
Okay.
zero waste club, so that's,
All right, so again, from an income, okay, maybe we need to look at our activity fees, you know, because we keep adding
we're
expense.
really good at collecting them.
Yeah, but we need to have some accounting of what's coming to each school. And I know it goes out into the general fund, to the district level fund.
Right.
But it would be interesting to know what the contribution is by school into the activity fund.
Yeah, we have that.
Okay.
Whoever's running the
All right,
program is like.
and then finally,
Yeah.
the library increase, I assume is trying to catch up on our,
Yes, ours was pretty bad, like
yeah,
Millard
I know,
was.
well, yes, I
Yeah.
know. We talked about this 2 years ago.
Yes, so you remember that, so ours
Yeah.
is just, and last year, I remember it was taken out of the budget, but we found a grant to be
Yeah.
able to help supplement that, so we actually are just gonna continue that, but put it
Yeah,
into
for
the
your
budget.
information, we did an analysis of our library contents in the schools, John, and we were
It was,
like,
it's pretty, it
it
was
was-
like, it was bad, it was embarrassing.
we were like back to 1998 was the average
Yeah.
age of the books and the materials.
I know we've
in our
got it
libraries
up
in my
4
school.
years
Mhm.
or something like
Yeah.
that, by all the
Cider
reading.
Mill's actually in good, I mean, you are,
Cider Mill, we've made,
2008 is the
Yeah.
age of the collection.
What do you do with the books that you get rid of?
that's been hard, we at one,
From whence we
Yeah.
come.
Yes, I
I mean, some of the
Year.
stuff
Yes.
just needs to
Trash.
be purged,
Okay.
because there, it's, but, we did work with a couple, folks from, outside of our district to come down and get some, but, we still have some, we actually have some paraprofessionals that saw a couple of the books that are gonna research some more ways of, it's been a challenge, you wouldn't think it's hard to get, to find places, but it's the transporting and
Sure.
all of that, so, we have a couple of people who are continuing to work on it.
Other than this, like,
If
again, from
anybody
my
wants to
perspective, your overall,
write
your
all.
budget as
Geography book,
Kathy's is, you're fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, well done. I mean, we're really,
Good news is some of my questions Glenn already asked, so
Good.
let's got shorter. But starting in the 1100 program, so the general ed, just a observation that I know our community will see, especially some people in particular, that as you go in the out years from where we are today at 896 students served, we dropped 80 students by 21, 22, yet we've only dropped 1 FTE. So I know at this point in time, that's probably just because it's hard to predict,
Yeah.
you know, where those kids will be and whatever, but I think that that's just something to be aware of, that that's clearly something the public will look at and say, well, you know, you're dropping 80 students, but you're only going down 1 FTE.
Yeah, and we get allotted our FTEs for
Yeah.
teachers based on the projections that we get. So that line would be moving based
Yeah.
on,
I know it's a fluid type
Yeah.
of thing and a year-to-year thing, but just wanted to
Yeah.
bring up that observation. 1111, the textbooks,
yeah,
6410 is the account.
okay.
Again, just in the out years, just a large
Mm-hmm.
increase of where we are now, so if you could just explain what those are for.
I think that was because right now we are, I have to go look into the details and see which area it's under, but I think that was for math. because that's about the cost of the math license, and it only goes a certain amount of years, and I'm thinking that we have to re-up our renewal.
We have to re-up, it would make sense that it would be happening
So I
at the same
think
time.
that's what it is,
Yeah,
and I
you're-
think that's the year.
I have an increase in textbooks for math as well. You get like a 5-year license and we're going
Yeah.
into year 6.
And that's if it's all in that one chunk and if it lives under math. And
So, because that's what it looks like the previous years, I see it with 23 to 46 and then down to just
Yeah,
200.
you're-
'Cause it's like a
and then
3-year,
nothing, and then it renews, and then it, okay.
It's probably a
Exactly.
license renewal.
Okay.
Correct.
I just wanted to understand that line.
Yep.
Let's see, 1130, 8100, account membership dues, again in the out years,
412, 424.
yeah. Is that the similar thing that will,
I'd have to look, I don't.
Did you say 8,100?
It's
8100,
just
the
in the,
membership dues
in
under
the projected
science?
years, it's $400 each year.
Okay.
Which is just,
What is
higher
it?
than what it is currently, so I was just
Okay.
curious.
Why am I looking at it
Yeah, I don't
where
see
it
it.
looks like a negative?
It's in, so she's
Oh,
looking
yeah,
at
here.
2021 and 2022, the forecasting.
Yeah, the 2
Oh,
out
oh,
years,
oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
forecasted years. And 26, 25, which is,
Oh, I know, some of those too are just by, when you're having to project like that, we did like a percentage increase because dues go up a certain amount kind of every year. So
Average.
that was our just,
but it was like
So it's
0
averaging.
for this year, and then it jumped to
Really?
400 for the following 2 years, so.
yeah.
That's
Okay.
just curious to
Yeah,
me,
we
that's
can
all.
have Marion pull the detail and
Yeah,
see
just curious.
Yep.
what the note is.
They may have had things in them and then they were decreased in this year's budget, but not because of, trying to come in at a certain level.
Well, look.
And no explanation on 2625 furniture, equipment, 2625 account, equipment replacement. 1920, there's nothing, but then the 2 out years are 25,000, so any ideas to what
So
that
LLC.
that would be?
Probably for the LLC.
have much to
Which
do?
program was that?
Program 2625,
The last
It's
page.
your last line.
Last
page
one,
6,
last
and
page.
it's number 7320.
Was that classroom furniture, Jen?
Oh,
It's
that is
replacement.
classroom furniture. So, what Jose's been working on is, and I don't know if he comes in front of the group at all, but he's working on a much more systematic way of us refurnish it,
Furbish,
Replacing.
furbishing, replacing.
whichever one we want to use, not the
Switch
one
it,
I was
change
trying
it.
to say. Right now, it's been kind of like hit or miss, and we'll have bookshelves kind of in pretty much disrepair, and so he's trying to figure out what it would cost to do a classroom, and then a couple classrooms would be budgeted every year. Not
Double
necessarily
cycle.
you would
Right.
So
do
as
it that
is,
way,
yes,
but that
okay.
it would be an ongoing replacement cost.
Sure.
And so he's been working at doing that.
And it's not that much off from the last 2-year actuals, so
No.
it's pretty steady.
And he's just trying to be, like I
even it
said, a
out.
little more
Right.
systematic about, it, which is wonderful.
But the coming year, there's nothing though, right?
So he did put that
For
in there.
1920, there's nothing?
Maybe it's living somewhere else because he definitely put some in. We will check. There's definitely going to be something, so we'll check with Jose, who really uses this. That's one of the things that we've done. Furniture and everything has been something we've centralized. So
Yeah,
it used to live very much so in the
It
building
might be in
budgets.
the district. I
So
remember looking at that.
Okay.
it might be more centralized.
Yeah, if you look under district, I think it's a little different.
Because my first couple of years, I used to buy what I needed. Now we go through Tejas and work with Jose to kind of get what we need. So there definitely has been a shift to having it be a little more centralized.
Good.
So.
So I'm just curious about the,
Questions, first up, I'm sure Chuck can answer them, and if not, just email them to me.
Kathy, well
I'd be
done.
happy to answer.
It's encouraging to see what's happening.
Thank you. Thank you
Really
very
good.
much. All right,
Thank you.
thank you, thank you, sorry.
Good help.
Safe trip.
Okay, Jen,
Okay.
back to work.
Her husband's
Grandfather passed away.
And she said it's where?
Pennsylvania.
Sorry, I'm right. Well, I know, but.
We'll edit.
It's not the first time you edit something I say, so. Won't be the last, just warning
We
you.
have never edited anything, whether said by Lori
This is
Rothstein
my
or by
life.
anyone else.
All
Right.
right. Cider Mill Town?
That's right, there is the Prussia thing.
Can we not talk about Prussia
Okay,
anymore?
cider mill.
Okay.
Thank you, Jen.
All right. Mine's a little more kind of consistent, I think. Kathy had some changes in staffing and things like that. I think before I begin kind of going over, this year was really about kind of continuing the work we've started. And so if you look on the strategic plan, that was on pages 38 and 39 in the, I'm sure you guys have kind of looked over this. It really kind of lays out our focus, and you'll see that in the upcoming year, there was no shift or major change in focus from prior years. We've been actually very intentional in trying to give the large amount of work that we've kind of started time to really gel. And a lot of it is around core instruction, with our coaching work, with our IET, team time, and really allowing teachers to get very solid in their practices around core instruction. So that has not changed. With that, you'll also see a continued emphasis on our culture and climate. This year, it was a little different with the focus on the ruler program with adults. Next year, we anticipate going forward with the students, but that didn't actually have a big budgetary impact, although it will be new work. There really wasn't a lot of budgetary implications around that. My classroom teachers really stay numerically the same, 40 to 40. So there was no addition to certified staffing. We have been very creative in looking at our schedule and how we incorporate the LLC and 21st century learning and some purposeful playtime and enrichment, and so we will continue that work going forward into next year. So there may be some scheduling adjustments, but there won't be an impact in regard to FTE or budgetary factors as we kind of go forward and explore different options. I will say that my budget continues to focus on supporting a lot of professional learning. I really believe in the impact of professional capital and developing our teachers. The number one thing we can do for our kids is to have the best teachers we can in front of our students. So you'll see a continued emphasis on the coaching work. I'm not looking to add anything because I think we're saturated. Like I said, right now it's about continued refinement and improvement in all of the work that we've started. We're, as a district, really taking on a lot of more student-centered, very data-driven kind of coaching work. You'll see that, but again, no budgetary impact per se. So a lot of really great stuff continuing, but not that really evidenced itself in a need for more monies. Eventually, we did talk about, there's been this ongoing work you guys have brought up in the area of math, but the reality is there's been so much needed in regard to what our Tier 1 is like. I wouldn't want to add on anything at this moment in time. Our work will continue to really make sure that in the core instruction Tier 1, that the kids are getting what they need first, as we kind of keep an eye on whether or not something additional is needed, but not ready to make that proposal at this time.
Should we go?
So any questions? I'm kind of open.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear that Tier 1 is focused on the
Yes.
math, and that you're satisfied with the current level of staffing for the
Yeah.
building. So if you're putting so much emphasis on Tier 1, which is great, does that increase the need for coaching in math? Because it's still that sort of imbalance, more reading than math, which could be the nature of the subject and the ages of the kids. But do you
so-
feel that's sufficient?
It may be something we look into. I think we'll have to look going forward when we're having the same conversation next year as to, which I need. If you look at the sheer numbers, the reality is with coaching, teachers can only process and work with a coach and then work on refining what the coach worked on them with so much of their time, right? Otherwise, there's a saturation probably factor where you're getting coached, and you don't have a chance to like practice what you've been coached on. And I think that's kind of where we are right now. I work really hard with all of our coaches to make sure that any given teacher is not being multi-coached in different content areas, because that could get very overwhelming in regard to the work you're doing with your grade level teams, professionally as an individual, and then in the classroom with the students. And so there's a possibility I may look at that going forward, but I kind of need another year to work things out. We're actually looking at how to take the coaches we have now and almost do a schedule differently, do our cycles a little bit differently, to protect teacher time even more than we have at this moment in time.
Right.
So.
Or at some point, look at how they're deployed, if you need, I don't wanna say fewer, but.
We only have
instead-
2 to 1 right now, so.
Right, but I'm just wondering if,
Yeah.
you know, if you could shift the, you know, so it's 50-50 rather than more reading,
So-
more math.
so
And
right
again, I'm not
now-
asking
Yeah,
like
yeah.
what, but I'm just saying, rather than adding FTE, maybe shifting and deploying the balance.
So right
So it's
now, ours
flexible.
is
Does that make
humanities.
sense?
It does,
Yeah.
but, so right now, the amount of time you're spent in more of a humanities type classroom
Exactly.
is more
Yeah.
than you spend in math or science. So it makes sense just with the amount of instructional time
Okay.
that there would be more coaching in regard to humanities versus like a math science, just time-wise, right? So I can tell you that for the next couple of years, we're shifting to the Teachers College, and that will involve coaching in both reading and writing, right? So that's 2 times. So there's a possibility that down the line, that's something we would look at, but I don't even see that kind of going forward for like the next budget year. Just because of the amount of work I know is coming up with
And my last question
shifts.
would be instructional time.
Yes.
Glenn asked it at the elementary time, or Lori, I guess you asked it. The amount of math instructional time?
So we made a shift, painfully in many ways, right, Chuck? To, we have a full 60 minutes, and the reality of that is something has to give. There's, we were able to find more time, but it's always at the expense of something else. And so, we have short days here in Wilton, even if they're 15 minutes shorter than the norm, it makes a big difference when you're trying to find time to fit it all in. And so we have been able to manage the time. I'm trying to think of what we...
It was language arts, was it not?
Yeah, it was a little bit of language arts.
And a little bit of everything.
It was a
I think
little bit of everything. But yeah, every year we look to try to figure out how to maximize the time teachers have in front of kids. So we have found 60 minutes
So
for
60
now.
minutes,
Is
5
this the
days
first
or
year?
6 days?
What's up?
60 minutes.
Every day.
Every day.
Every day they meet. Now,
And
the
you're
reality
on a
is...
6-day schedule too? I forget.
So
I know.
right now, we're on an 8-day schedule, and I
Okay.
anticipate going forward with a similar schedule next year. But the reality is I'm saying 60 minutes, but for elementary kids, all the work we've been doing around social emotional learning is they need a break. Some of them have reading right before that, go right into the 60-minute math block. They need to take a break. And so, we can make them sit for 60 minutes, but the reality is if we don't make time for a movement break, they're not gonna, you can give them the 60 minutes and it's not gonna be as impactful as if you give them the time to move around. So that's what the teachers are doing, is constantly kind of making those decisions for their kids as to instructional time and kind of mental well-being. So it's scheduled for 60 minutes.
Okay, thank you.
Our school day is 15 minutes shorter on average.
It's under 15,
Yeah,
I mean, we're
that's
6
true.
hours and 30 minutes.
Yeah.
So-
It's a short day, it's not a long day.
And what's the state?
Other, I think
You meant 6 hours.
state-wise, we're like what we have to be. It's not like
Okay.
state, in regard to the state, we're like short any minutes or anything like that. But in regard to other
In our dirt,
school
we're shorter?
districts, I don't know if we've ever collected that.
I don't
But
know, I
Most
can't
are
tell
6
you.
hours, 35 minutes.
Yeah.
Litchfield was
6:35.
6:35.
Yeah, and we accommodated many years ago
Yeah.
to manage pickup and drop off.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it, is the sheer number of students that we're kind of moving in and moving out.
So I
at the
can't
end of
say
the
that
day.
kids get 6.5 hours of instruction because there's arrival and
Mhm.
dismissal.
Right,
So you could lose a half an hour a day
Mhm.
just to that, which is, you know,
right,
Especially in the
2.5
lower
hours a week.
grades.
yeah.
Oh,
I mean, we have to be very systematic with the way we're calling buses. I mean, you know, it's a
Right.
safety concern, right?
It cuts into the day, there's no
Yeah.
doubt
Yeah.
about it. Getting
I
them
think-
in the morning, getting the coats off, getting them
Yep.
away, you
Yep.
know, and then at the end of the day, starting early,
Same
getting
thing.
the coats on.
Going the other way.
And the younger grade, lower grades, it hurts.
Yeah,
It really does. It
Does.
eats into the day, no doubt about it.
The other area where we bleed time in large schools, marching kids from one side of the building
Oh,
to
yeah,
the
I
other,
mean-
to art class, gym class,
Yep.
whatever.
you know, we try to keep,
Just stop every 3 feet.
yeah, we try to keep them as close as possible, but the reality is, you know,
It's a challenge.
Lindsay, can I go?
Yeah. Couple of things. First, a jump on it. The Teachers College has come up now again,
Mhm.
and I don't know that as a board we have ever been given any explanation of what the focus is here, why we're doing this, what the direction is, what the benefit is. I think it's time we do it.
Yeah,
Because
sure.
it seems to be both costly and time-consuming and impactful. And I'd like, as a board member, to understand, all of a
Yeah.
sudden this is beginning to develop here, and we need to know, if you would.
so I can,
As I look across the schools, that in almost every program, general supplies accounts have been greatly increased this year over last year. Would you say that we're refurbishing what we didn't get last year because we drastically cut it last year?
My supplies are actually significantly down.
yeah,
Okay, well, point it out when.
which line, because we have it broken out, don't we?
If you have an account number,
Well, like, for example, just even under the 1100 account, general ed for Miller Driscoll, it's a 7% increase this year over last year.
I know that line has taken a hit over the
It has,
last
right.
few
Yeah.
years.
And,
so we'll have to
yeah, and I
look.
noticed that, and I just wanted
Yeah.
to kind of say that it looks like we're looking to,
well, it took a hit, well, let's just as an example.
Cider
Miller
Mill
Driscoll.
looks okay, but,
Yeah, it took a hit last year.
Yeah.
right.
It's been taken a
That's
hit.
my
But it's up
point.
dramatically this year, the current budget, and up slightly for the next year. We took a big hit.
Right.
2017-18 there.
Right, and
Then it
that's, I'm
jumped
just
up.
making that observation, that,
Let
so
me
as
just-
people see
yeah.
that there's that 7% increase in that line item, to just know that it's because we took a hit in that.
Yeah, as I said, you're down 6%.
Yeah.
But let me just also
Yeah.
underscore that my budget is different this year because preschool used to live in the special ed
Right.
budget.
So
So
it could be some
my
of that,
budget
too.
is very different because now
Basically
my
down
budget
yours,
is pre-K to 2.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I would just say as a note for everybody who's looking at this, you know, again, in knowing that we're moving to a new general ledger software. And in Marion for a couple of years, and it happens it's happened every year since I've been to remove things around.
So
So
line items.
I would pay a little less attention to the summary pages and then get into the details.
Right.
And I think when you get into the year-over-year details, you'll see if there are chunk increases, it's because they're tied to a specific purpose. So it's not necessarily, well, we underfunded last year, now we're just gonna add 6%.
Okay.
We don't budget that way.
Okay.
Everything's tied to a specific item, a specific material, cost of living increase, whatever.
Okay.
And it looks like building-wide, they're nothing dramatic, because in other departments, like social
Right.
studies, they're down 5,000.
Okay.
And another, they're down 6,000, so it didn't look like that dramatic.
Another, and this might just be an accounting thing, parent activity accounts. Like, at Miller Driscoll, it's only in the 2,400 supervisory services, but at Cider Mill, it's in general ed and supervisory services. In Middlebrook, it's listed in both general ed and supervisory, but it's only in the 2,400 account. And the high school only has it in the 2,400 account, but it's 0 is the amount. So that was one account that was kind of confusing to me.
And it goes back to trying to uniform
Yeah.
where we're putting
So it's
everything,
all
so it's
trans-
gonna look,
okay.
yeah, some of the things we are trying to do back years, but some of it's gonna look strange because we're classifying. You'll see when you get to technology, you're gonna see the same thing where it got pulled out of schools and put into technology to get it all into the same place. And a lot of it also going through the new EDO one with the way the state wants to see it now and how they're coding, it's a whole electronic thing they want. And it's very specific how they want it coding. In going through it last year, Marianne, she did the bulk of the work. We had to break out so much stuff manually because of how our coding is. So we're trying to now put the coding and put those line items with the new conversion to actually line up to that, so it'll be an easier process at the end of the year for that. So
Okay.
there will be ongoing changes
So,
that
all
way.
right, so going forward, that'll
Yeah, it'll
continue to
true
be
up, it'll be another
consolidated.
year or so before it'll look cleaner that way
Perfect.
as we
It's
go through
messy
it.
now.
It's
but
a little
will
messy, yeah.
ultimately be a cleaner,
One clean
more
line
direct
item
Right.
budget
per budget.
process for
Okay.
everybody, for all of us especially, trying to put things in the right location.
Okay.
And then there'll be a lot of backstory to be able to pull out more specific detail for folks who know.
So the rest of my questions are more just line item questions, which may have the same exact answer to every question,
I
but
was gonna say,
Yeah.
so people have questions that specifically Kathy?
Yeah.
That are
Yeah.
just Kathy?
the one FTE that you're adding, where will that be?
Well, right now, we have 13 sections of kindergarten, 11 sections of first grade, and 12 sections of second.
13.
So we would keep 13 kindergarten, move those 13 up to first grade, and second grade would have 11.
So,
It's really a K teacher.
so it's a K teacher.
So it's weird when you say a K teacher, because right now we have 13 Ks, but what was originally projected was 12, 13, 11, so
But you're
it's
actually
going to
hiring a
kindergarten.
new
Yes.
employee, and that person will be a kindergarten teacher.
Not necessarily, because right now we have 13 kindergarten
And that's all
teachers.
you, okay.
So we're hiring a new teacher.
And you'll work
Because
it out.
overall, you're
Yeah.
gonna have
Does
one
that make
additional
sense,
section
even though it's
somewhere,
like-
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, because in
Right.
theory, a second grade, yeah.
I know, it's all.
Yeah, I know.
All right,
Gretchen?
under the music, 1114, there's an equipment replacement line, 7320. And it says that it's to replace instruments on a regular basis, no longer. So I see like previous years, there was like nothing, only $500. Last year, nothing, this year. And then we project 1,500 from here on out over the next projected 2 out years. So,
For
yeah, we're gonna,
equipment?
yeah, so we're gonna continue 1,500 each year for like the next 3 years?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have 5 minutes left. Gretchen? Do you have
Oh.
anything you want to ask Kathy?
I can't ask any more questions.
Well, let's
No,
get someone
no,
else to have a chance to.
it's okay. You can go ahead and ask your question. I think that my
Okay.
question, I only have one in it.
Yeah, real quick.
I don't need to ask it today.
3 humanities, 1 STEM coach, right?
Yes,
3 reading interventionists, 1 math.
correct.
Right. In the preschool, there's a line for hiring additional clerical.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted you to speak to that, the need for that we need, what's the clerical position and the need for that.
Again, it usually would be extra time for Patty Terranova. Sometimes we have kids who come back on the bus, for example. Sometimes we have, those situations where we require extra time. In addition, there's a lot of the special ed paperwork that she does. Also ESY. Patty Terranova is sort of like, take everything every secretary does in the district, and she does all of those things. So it would be extra clerical time if we
Okay.
need it for her.
Let's see what this was. Oh, in 2220, library media, under library books and catalog, 6411 account, it shows, like, in the out years, it shows an incredibly large increase. Like, we did 7,000 the current year, 6,200 proposed, but then the next 2 projected years are up to 17,000.
Fran Compar gives us she does it based on a formula. That formula then usually gets cut down and money gets taken out. So that's why every year we put in a much bigger number, and then money is taken out of that library for books and catalogs. I
So
think
is
she
that
does
the
like $20
technology
a, 20.
memberships or-
No,
No?
in this
Like
line,
$20 a,
so Fran has been trying to refresh our circulation. And a year ago, I think the average age was like 1995. So in the last year we've invested, we've gotten Miller Driscoll to, I think, 2003, where the rest of the schools are 2008. So we should ask this question to Fran when she's here tomorrow, but I'm 90% sure she's looking at the age of the collection, and that money's set aside to update, continue to update the collection.
And their physical books.
Their books.
Okay, Dennis, or Glenn?
Just one more question, piggybacking on Lori's. The number of math interventionists, the 3 reading, 1 math, given our focus on math, I'm just going to ask the question about math intervention. Is it sufficient?
Right now, I think it's absolutely sufficient. Again, I think the work that needs to be done is in the classroom.
Okay,
So,
fair enough. Good, thank you.
I have one more quick. We're doubling the salaries of the certified for extended day. Isn't there an income offset to our extended day program? Don't parents pay for the extended day?
for preschool,
Or it's just, this is the current extended day program. We're doubling from 13,000 to 29,000.
what are you looking at?
It's account 1450, salaries of a certified extended day. Okay.
Oh, that's clubs and activities. And that's because in the past, well, when I first came, we only had MDTV. Then we added on student leadership. So that number is going up because we're actually adding more clubs to Miller Driscoll. You know, we
Is that
haven't
the
had
free,
any.
is that the?
So are
free
these
collection?
stipends?
So the free play club is in there.
Yeah.
Yep, and we're also starting a postal club.
All right, so these are
we'll have our own.
stipends to teachers, right?
Pardon me?
Stipends to teachers.
Correct.
Now,
Yeah.
isn't there an offset in income to those clubs? We don't charge and
Right, here's what I'll tell you, we will start charging a fee next year, just so that it will be uniform across the schools.
All
In
the
the past,
schools.
we never charged an activities fee, I know
Right.
that they do that at Cider Mill.
Yeah.
And so
All the
we will
schools.
do that next year, so yes, there
And
would
that
be, now
income
I understand.
So where is that income to offset the
goes in.
show?
We haven't
So-
projected it
Right.
yet
And
in
it's
the
only
budget.
$25
Per
for
whole
the
year.
first activity.
Yeah.
And then you could participate in
Right.
as many as you would like.
Well, okay.
So
There's
we'll have an
expense,
offset.
there's no offsetting income
Right.
here.
But
That's
I
it's
wouldn't say
never
offset.
given back to the schools, right?
But
It just goes
it's
into-
$25.
It's in the general fund as an
Yeah, for
offset.
one child, for
Yeah.
any
Right.
activities that they want
No, I
to do. and that's
understand
inside
that.
of- I mean, so I don't think it's gonna be, even if
Yeah.
she were to
It's not gonna
project it, it's,
offset.
But it's not given back to the schools anyway.
So at the school level, it goes into
It
the
goes
overall.
into
to
the
the
general, the district.
oh, okay.
It's the same
Sorry,
thing with the
I missed
athletic fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what we'll see as we, again, continue to refine the budget.
Well, that's
we'll start to
another
see a
whole
line.
point about our ability and our timeliness and accuracy
Mhm.
actually collecting those funds, because there are people in clubs here that we have not collected a penny for, whose parents have voluntarily stepped forward and said, hey, I need to pay this because you never asked me for it.
Mhm.
It's something I think we need to address.
So those are the lower schools?
No,
The high school, they don't want you to go to prom if you don't pay for participation fees.
It's the high school.
Just my experience.
That's it.
Not that I remember paying anything. Oh, thank you, Kathy.
Sorry, I have to go. If there's, the other way is we could have students who are referred either from community preschools or from parents of kiddos who are 3 or 4. And then we go through that whole initial evaluation process and decide if the student is found eligible, then they come, right when their IEP goes into effect. Kids who are 3, even if we know about them ahead of time, we do all of that work before they turn 3, and then they come to us on their 3rd birthday. And then there are typical peers who, again, register like right around this time of the year, and then we look at how many spots we're going to have for next year. We do give, some preference to kids who are the typical peers who are already in the program, and I know Bernadette has sent out information to say, do you want to continue in the program? And then we do look at siblings of those kids and give them, spots, and then we look and see what's left, which is usually not much. So, and then we have a waiting list. So that's how we've done it.
There looked like there was an increase in professional days for certified, substitute days for certified training.
Mm-hmm.
And my concern is always instructional time overall. And given the fact that our calendar has changed to incorporate more professional development time, we've already lost a little bit of instructional time. And then when I see an increase in the number of substitutes for training,
Yeah.
I get worried. So, and looking at the other buildings, they seem to have stayed flat. If I'm reading it correctly, I may not be.
Right.
But I thought I saw a pretty hefty increase. The dollar amount's really not a particular worry
Yep.
because it's not that much money, but the number of days, and that to me translates into time away from the classroom. So can you talk a little bit about the need to pull teachers out of the classroom more, if that's what's happening?
Yeah. Part of it is my error this year in my budgeting for subs, given our becoming a TC project school. So I didn't budget correctly for it, and I'm not sure why, I didn't even think of it. But when the staff developer comes in, we develop a rotating schedule for those 5 days where grade levels rotate through meeting with Liz Franco and the instructional coaches. So in that time period, in that day, to cover a whole grade level, that takes 12 subs. So teachers aren't missing the whole day, they're missing about an hour and 45-minute chunk, but each grade level rotates through. So when you think about 12 subs for 5 days, that's 60 subs. So that's where a big part of the increase came. We also bought tickets this year for teachers to go to Columbia for calendar day workshops that are related to the units that they're, that they're using. And so that also is a lot of sub time. So that's where the increase came.
Okay, and
That
again,
makes sense.
my concern is less the budget and more the amount of instructional time.
Right.
So that remains a concern of mine.
Right, right. And again, a big chunk of it is, like I said, 60 subs is the teachers rotating through the day, but like I said, they aren't missing a whole day of instruction.
Is there any way of breaking that down as to how much is an hour and a half out of the classroom versus how much out of the day for the whole day?
Wait, say that again?
I just wonder, if you could break it down, like how many days will a teacher be totally absent from the classroom versus how much of the time is rotating?
Right. Well, rotating is 5 days out of the whole year. So there were 3 days in October. There were 3 Tuesdays in October in a row that teachers did the rotating cycle. So they were out of the classroom for an hour and 45 minutes on each of those days. The classroom teachers, the 36 classroom teachers. Then for our calendar days, most of the 36 classroom teachers are going on average 2 times to Columbia, so down to TC. So it would be 2 days and then the hour and 45 minutes 5 times. Does that help?
Yeah, not in the right way, but it helps.
That hour
All
and
right,
45
do you want me to give
minutes.
you a different answer?
So-
Yes, Jeff.
I appreciate you being upfront, but
Yeah.
my worry is the teacher leaves the classroom, especially with the calendar that we've already reduced instructional time in. So that, I raised the question when we did the calendar, so I'm
Yeah.
certainly going to be more sensitive to increase in substitute demands.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
think,
think-
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I think as we go through working with TC, I think the number of calendar days that the teachers will go to we'll be able to have less and less of those. Because I think as they get more familiar with the units, I think that's not something that they will need to do as frequently. But I will tell you that the time that the TC staff developer is in our school it's absolutely amazing. So she comes in, she meets with the group, it's kind of like you do with kids. She does sort of a little mini lesson with the group of teachers, then they go in and the TC staff developer is teaching a class. And the teachers are all observing and then they come back and debrief. So I understand that it means they're out of the classroom, but it's amazing that this person can come in and do that. And the instructional coaches are right with the teachers during all of that time. So all of them, the support they're giving is supporting what the teachers are learning during that time.
Yeah,
Does
and
that
again,
help?
oh yeah, it does
Like,
help. And it's
no,
the
yeah.
rotating in and out of the classroom for an hour and a half.
Mhm.
That the teachers basically, in many respects, anchored to that classroom for most of the day. So I
Correct.
get that.
Yeah.
It's when they go off-site,
Right,
or when they're totally removed from the classroom for an entire day.
right,
So that's, just sensitive to that, that's all.
yeah.
Laura?
You have my point.
No, Laura. Yeah, Glenn can go, that's all.
How many humanities coaches do you have?
We have 3.
Okay. John, next question. The facility itself, there was, as you well know, great conversation in the community that we were overbuilding, we have all this wasted space, underutilized space. My impression is that there's no unutilized space there now. Can you speak to that?
You're correct. There's no unutilized space.
No, that's important. I
You
think
wanna
that's important for
steer
the
to the
community
microphone?
to know.
Right.
And that's a key comment for the community to hear, because there was all the talk as we did the remodel about we're overbuilding while we're doing all these classrooms. There was talk about utilizing space for other purposes, whatever. They need to know that we are full up. I mean, that
Right.
every inch of that building is being utilized.
Right.
There is no wasted space. There's no underutilized space in that building.
Right. And if we go up to 6 preschool classrooms, we will
Yeah.
have, we have a plan.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna
I'm not gonna live that down.
Yeah,
Forever.
but no, it's very important for the community to understand that, because there was all the talk during the remodeling process about we were overbuilding, we had the space underutilized, and I think it's really important that they know that that's not the case whatsoever.
Right.
And so that's important.
Agreed.
Next one, half a science teacher. A half? Is that enough? I mean, you've got K through 2. What is it? How effective is half a teacher going to be?
Well, the nice part about what Kevin Meehan does in the STEAM lab is he does lessons with the class, but with the classroom teacher there. So right now, that helps a lot, because with the change of units, with the whole change of going to NGSS, science standards, and using inquiry, he's a great model for the teachers. He also is a huge support to the lessons that they do in the class.
Now, is he the half?
He's the half.
What is he doing now, currently? We're adding a half in the science.
No,
Kevin is the half. That's just a shift in the budget from that. That position was located in Chuck's budget, and we just reassigned the FTE back to the buildings. We're just trying to do a better job as we get ready for the conversion to really track.
So he's full-time?
No.
Kevin made a change over this last year. He reduced his own time so he could spend more time at Ambler Farm.
Okay.
So he's spending, he's a half-time employee now, assigned to Miller Driscoll.
Okay.
We have another half-time science teacher at Cider Mill to fill in the backside of.
So it's the same FTE.
It's the
Correct.
same FTE.
It's just
Okay.
put in different lines, I guess.
Okay.
That's
And
it.
then who's the .5 classified FTE under
The-
science?
A para.
At Miller
It's a
Driscoll.
para.
It's a para.
That shares.
Yeah.
She's half-time science and half-time technology.
We each I used to have the full-time certified science teacher. Kathy had a paraprofessional. We split it so that half the time Kathy would have the certified person, half the time she'd have the paraprofessional. Now I have a half a time certified, and
Who's your science teacher?
we have Elise
Elise or something?
Lepresti.
Right. So let's go back. So Kevin was full-time. And now-
Never at Miller Driscoll was he full-time. He was full-time at Cider Mill.
All right. Do you need a full-time? I guess the point I'm trying to get at is that enough? Is what we're doing enough for you in the area of science with all the emphasis and the focus that we're putting there? I mean, and I raised this question before, does it make sense that we do not need a full-time science teacher?
Here's what I would say, which is exactly what Dr. Smith said when you guys asked him at the budget meeting. I mean, do I want more? Sure. Right now, with the implementation of the new units,
Right.
the model that we're using, I think, is working really well
Okay.
because the teachers are in the STEAM lab with Kevin.
Okay.
So I think that's, like I said, helpful for a lot of reasons. Helpful because we're teaching science in such a different way.
Okay.
Helpful because we have the STEAM lab, which is amazing from
Yeah.
an anonymous donor to have that space and have all the things that we have in there. But again, having the classroom teacher in there lets them see that lesson, which is in the unit, that they're really teaching the majority of that unit. So,
I just want to make sure, I mean, I'm willing to put it on the table for discussion, do it if we need it, but if you're, okay.
Maybe next year.
My turn? First, a few general questions. Remind me, what's our contracted teacher increase for the year?
It's 3%.
It's around 3%.
Yeah.
All right, so where I see significant larger amounts or smaller, it's because personnel changes within the,
Correct,
right?
and that's, so
Okay.
it's step and lane movement.
Right.
And that's tracked to a person.
One observation, it seems to me. And first off, the humanities coaches love being down there, and the preschool coaches, the preschool teachers absolutely love having them. We're using our math coaching this year to do math cycles, but also to support the changes that we have in a couple of our units at each grade level. And one big push of our strategic improvement plan this year is to actually have teachers observing teachers. So we're looking for ways to have teachers either videotape themselves and do some reflection at IETs, or start visiting each other's classrooms and doing some, kind of peer collaboration around those visits. We continue to have IET one time a week for 30 minutes, and this year we, thanks to Janine Carley, who's masterful at scheduling, found a 45-minute block where we pull groups of classrooms together to do the social skills lesson. So Elena White will do a social skills lesson with 3 or 4 classes together in our multipurpose room, and we then use that time to meet with teachers in small groups to do SRBI. So we've been really creative with our scheduling this year, so that the IETs can be just focused on the classroom instruction. Our STEAM lab, yes, we love our STEAM lab, is amazing, and with our new science units now in 1st and 2nd grade, Kevin Meehan is super busy doing lessons with all of the kids K-2. Our coaches are also supporting new social studies units in kindergarten. And then we are piloting some of the units in the creative curriculum down in preschool. So that's this year. So for next year, we really looked at maintaining the level of support we have in the regular ed classroom. And I think whenever you all ask me if I need anything else, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want? And I always say the magic happens in the classroom and at tier 1. So we are being given another classroom section. A couple of years ago, we got cut 2 classroom sections when we went down 45 students. We're going back up 45 students, and we're getting a teacher back, so I'm very excited about that. And that will help us to maintain kindergarten class sizes at about 19. Although the kids are coming in fast and furious, I think it's same with you. Yeah. In the last couple of weeks, we've gotten like 15 new students. It is crazy. Yeah.
At all levels, at all grades?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Mostly K-1 though.
Plus 9 since compared back to 01.
Yeah.
In total?
Right?
District.
4th grade
Yeah.
is like,
That was a week and a half ago though. So
Yeah.
if the numbers have
Yeah.
changed.
Literally.
We had like a huge influx over
Since
December
the
and
break.
then coming back in January. So.
You say coming up, when we came back to school in January.
Right, they all started registering in December, and then as they, kind of completed different things. But I know for a couple of weeks, we had 4 new students one week, 5 new students another week.
same.
Are any of them students who had left and are coming back, or are they all brand new?
We have one student who left, went to Florida, and then came back.
We have one that went to England and then came back.
So, but the other ones are all new. From Stanford, from Westport.
A lot from Stanford.
Yeah, we have Stanford and
So it's not
Westport.
like job transfers from like across the country or out of state or something?
Some of
No.
those, but
No.
a mix.
Local.
I would say closer. And then the other thing that we had put into our budget for next year is to add on an additional preschool teacher, as our numbers, keep building and building and building. So the conversation was had about, because we kind of start smaller and have that rolling enrollment with the kids who are 3 or with students who are identified during the year, adding in that 6th preschool teacher next year come January. So again, once those class sizes get bigger, then we would do what we did last school year, which would be to add a new teacher.
But just be planful about it. You'd have
Pardon
it
me?
planned. rather than last year, we didn't plan for that, right?
Oh, we had, yeah, yes. Well, we didn't, okay. Jen's asking.
She's like, Jen, stop asking me questions. I'm throwing the questions from you.
It's just a good idea to
We were,
include in the
we were
budget.
still planful about.
Yes, you were coming, but we're including in the budget.
I'm not
The principals
planning.
asking each other
I'm not gonna
questions, okay?
plan
I'm very engaged in the conversation.
She's like, mind your own business.
Carry on, Coon.
it. We didn't plan for it last year. She just popped up and we were like, here you go. No, I'm just kidding.
So
You're
you're-
just not funny the way.
So the plan is to
Yes.
add a full-time teacher, but halfway through the year?
Yes,
So January 2020.
yeah.
And then what happens to that teacher at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we would look at that. I know that in this year's, and similar to last year, we had proposed adding sort of an instructional coach / preschool coordinator, because Trudy Denton and Karen Bernecki, for example, they do K-8. So there's not really a curriculum person for preschool, and there hasn't in the past been a coach assigned to preschool. We've asked our humanities people to start doing that now. So in the budget, we had proposed sort of a preschool coach coordinator, and I know there was a conversation around, would we eventually get to a place where we would have an additional teacher in preschool. At the beginning of the year, they would do instructional coaching and some curriculum coordination, and then move into being a classroom teacher like midway through the year, if the numbers, kind of warranted that. But that would be a conversation then that we would have for 2021 to see if that was a possibility.
So if that model
so-
happened, the increase this year would be 0.5, and then next year would be another 0.5 if the coaching
If that would happen.
model and enrollment
Right.
warranted.
Yeah,
Okay.
and if not, I
Got it.
think, like we all, then we have to maybe look at the coordinators that we have and, bring them down to pre-K. It's just a place where it's sort of, pre-K was always on its own, and now it's, kind of coming into the fold, but it's showing that we have a lot of things that aren't getting addressed.
Any thoughts about hiring a teacher mid-year?
Well, when we hired the teacher mid-year last year, after planning extensively for it, we were lucky because we had a teacher who actually left her position at another school and came to us. But sometimes that's really hard to hire a teacher mid-year, and sometimes it's hard to hire a teacher mid-year if you're only hiring them for 6 months, then you can't guarantee that the next year they're going to.
But if you know now that you're planning for it, you could start interviewing earlier in the fall and let the applicants know that this would be a January start date for some people.
Right, but
that
if you
might
couldn't
accept.
guarantee them a job, like if
But
it,
in this case, though, we would be, because you're putting it in the budget to start.
It's
next
only for
year.
6 months.
Right, so,
Couldn't
We're just putting a
guarantee past
0.5 in the budget
right,
for
but
the
the
coming year.
following year, will she have a 1.0?
It's unlikely.
Or would it be waiting
Still
again
be
until
up.
January?
Well, that's a decision to be
Okay.
made
Right,
next year, but I'm
How
just
do you-
saying, this fall, you could start interviewing for the January position, is what I'm saying.
I think people might be reluctant to take a half-year position, and there's no guarantee.
You can interview the person and you can reach an agreement, but then they could take another job that's
Right.
full year elsewhere. And so you
Well, I
can go
mean, you
through
just
that
put it in the
process several
posting, though, I
times.
mean, you make it clear in the posting that the start date is whatever, so.
Right, my question was like, what is the labor pool for preschool teachers? If
Well,
there's
first off, it's
more
yeah.
applicants than there is demand, then it's not so problematic, but, I don't know what that balance is, if
It's-
there's,
It's small, even if you're hiring for a permanent position.
Okay,
Because
so
you
it-
have to be dual certified, early
Okay.
childhood and special education.
okay, so
in
it's a
our
small
program.
pool anyway.
Yep.
All right, so that's
Yeah.
gonna make it challenging.
Mhm. Right.
The good thing is, Wilton is a place that people would like to come to. So that's what happened, I think, the person we
Right.
hired last year.
Mhm. Yep. Yep. And if we were hiring come December, I mean, we'd maybe have a little bit better of an idea if that person would then be, right? 'Cause we've sort of
Yes.
been
Right, by
Right.
December.
It's the
doing the
budget.
process,
Right,
right? So we
yeah.
might have a little bit of an idea.
Right.
as to whether it be a position that would continue. We asked also for some additional PE time this year, so we're hoping that we're going to be able to get that from some PE time that has been adapted PE across the district. And then also for this year, we put in some monies around NIAC accreditation, so that would mean the preschool would be accredited by NIAC. So the first year is sort of an exploration, but you spend a certain amount of money and you go through some of the credentials. So that would be a multi-year plan. So basically, that's what we have in our proposed budget right now. I think at this point, we're being as creative as we possibly can with our schedule, because we're always looking for increased collaboration time for our teachers. So right now, like I said, we've been able to carve out this 30-minute IET and then this 45-minute SRBI. And so we'll look at that for next year as well.
And how much time do students have for math each day?
60 minutes.
Good.
Yep.
And 60
Kindergarten is broken up, so it's like, different chunks of the day, and they do like a calendar math that's part of their math, because kindergarten doesn't really do anything for 60 minutes, in case you're wondering. But throughout the day.
But it's a
they
good
get
60
their
minutes. I mean, it's not really 55. I mean, it's
It's 60 minutes in the schedule.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And
So,
so the projections for class sizes across the building next year, they're where you want them to be?
yes, with this additional teacher, we were a little worried before, just because again, our numbers keep going up and up and up, so. But it's nice to be able to keep kindergarten at like 19, 20. So,
How do people register for preschool? I mean, as far as, like, how much, do you have a list of the kids who are going to age into the preschool program? Because I know you've also got a waiting list, so I'm just
Yeah.
curious on, like, how
Yeah.
that all works.
So it works sort of two different ways, right? So if you are coming up in birth to 3, where you're already getting birth to 3 services, then we have a list of those students who've already been identified by birth to 3. We look at assessments that have been done in birth to 3, decide if we need to do additional assessments or if then the student would qualify coming into our program. So that's one way.